You're gonna walk past a plant today and feel absolutely nothing. But 500 years ago, that same plant would have been considered more valuable than money, more protective than a locked door, and more sacred than most objects inside a church. What changed isn't the plant. What changed is us. We stopped listening. We stopped paying attention. We started buying synthetic sprays, electric diffusers, and wellness gadgets, while the real thing has been growing quietly in meadows, at old doorways, and along forgotten garden walls, waiting to be remembered. Today, I'm going to give you 13 plants that ancient cultures, across completely different continents, with no contact with each other, all agreed carried something powerful, something that shifted the energy of a home. Something modern aromatherapy, psychology, and environmental science are now beginning to explain in ways our ancestors described with the only language they had, the sacred. Stick with me, because number 7 was carried into battle by warriors for centuries, and number 13 was considered so holy it was only gathered with prayer and ceremony. Let's begin. Number 1, rue, the plant that guards what matters most. Here's something that will stop you cold. In southern Italy, in rural Greece, in the mountain villages of Latin America, 3 completely separate grandmother traditions, women who never met, who spoke different languages, who lived on different continents, all kept the same plant near their front door for the same reason: protection. Rue, with its dusty blue-green leaves and sharp, almost medicinal scent, has been trusted as a spiritual guardian longer than most nations have existed. It wasn't kept for decoration. It wasn't kept because it was pretty. It was kept because generations of people felt, without question, that it worked. Traditional households hung dried rue above doorways, or kept it potted right at the entrance, a living filter that absorbed heavy, negative energy before it ever crossed into the home. The scent alone carries something grounding, something that seems to say, this far and no further. One important note, rue can irritate sensitive skin and isn't safe for pets or small children to ingest, but treated with respect, positioned at your entrance, rue functions like a spiritual sentry. Quiet, unassuming, completely serious about its purpose. Number 2, bay laurel, the plant that turns intentions into reality. Most people know bay leaves from the kitchen. What most people don't know is that for thousands of years, bay laurel was considered a direct channel between human intention and the universe. Ancient Greek priestesses burned bay leaves for prophetic vision. Roman victors were crowned with laurel wreaths, not as decoration, but as a declaration. This person carries the energy of success. Mediterranean households kept bay laurel near their entryways specifically to welcome prosperity, to signal to a fortune that it was welcome here. The spiritual practice that survived into the modern era is simple and surprisingly powerful. Write an intention on a dried bay leaf, hold it, feel the weight of what you want, then burn it, releasing that energy outward. People have done this for millennia, and whether you understand it as prayer, manifestation, or folk psychology, the effect on your mind and energy is real. Keep a potted bay laurel near your front door. Harvest the leaves for cooking. Place one in your wallet. Tuck one under your pillow when you need clarity in dreams. Bay laurel doesn't just sit there looking beautiful. It works. It turns your space into a living altar to possibility. Number 3, hyssop, the reset button for a heavy home. Have you ever walked into a room after a bad argument and felt it? That thickness in the air, that lingering weight, that no amount of opening windows seems to clear? Hyssop was the ancient answer to that exact feeling. This plant, with its upright spikes of purple-blue flowers and that clean, sharp, minty medicinal aroma, has been used for spiritual cleansing across traditions so old and so separate that it appears in biblical texts and in folk practices that predate recorded history, after illness, after conflict. After grief has moved through a space, traditional spiritual cleaners would bundle fresh hyssop and sweep through every room. Not scrubbing the floors, but sweeping the air, resetting the energetic atmosphere. Some steeped it in water for floor washes, some burned it like incense. All of them understood something we've largely forgotten: that spaces hold memory, and memory sometimes needs to be cleared. What sets hyssop apart from other purifying plants is the specific quality of its energy. It doesn't mask. It doesn't perfume over something heavy. It is believed to genuinely lift and dissolve stagnant energy, leaving behind something that actually feels clean. The plant also attracts bees and butterflies, drawing in living vitality that compounds its positive effect. Grow hyssop in a sunny spot. Make a simple hyssop tea for cleaning your floors before a new beginning. When the air in your home feels heavy, let hyssop do what it has done for thousands of years. Reset everything. Number 4, Angelica, the plant named after an archangel for a reason. This one has a story behind its name that changes how you see it. Angelica was named after Archangel Michael, specifically because it was believed to bloom on the Feast of Michael and because its protective power was considered nothing short of divine. This wasn't a casual naming. People who named this plant believed genuinely and completely that it carried the energy of angelic protection. The plant itself is commanding, tall, impressive, with large umbrella-like clusters of white flowers and roots, leaves, and seeds that carry a distinctive scent, sweet, slightly musky, and deeply grounding. Everything about it speaks to something solid, something that stands between you and harm. Traditionally, Angelica was planted near doorways and property boundaries as a guardian. Its root was carried as a protective charm. Burned, it served as purifying incense that people believed literally invited angelic forces into a space. If you've ever wanted your home to feel watched over, not surveilled, but gently, powerfully protected by something larger than the everyday, Angelica creates that atmosphere in a way no security system can replicate. It's the feeling of not being alone in your home in the best possible sense. Number 5, lemon verbena, the plant that teaches your home to be happy. This one might be the most underestimated plant on this entire list. Lemon verbena is so intensely, almost absurdly lemony that the first time you brush your hand through it, you laugh. It smells like pure sunshine compressed into a leaf, and that quality, that almost aggressive brightness, is exactly what makes it spiritually powerful. Traditional practitioners in South America and Europe used lemon verbena to wash floors and doorways before important new beginnings, business openings, weddings, fresh starts after hard seasons. The principle was straightforward. This plant doesn't just clear negative energy, it actively calls in joy. It shifts the energetic frequency of a space toward optimism, possibility, and the feeling that good things are not just coming but welcome. After depression, after a long period of gray sameness, after loss has made your home feel like somewhere you just survive rather than somewhere you live, lemon verbena begins to restore something. Not loudly, not dramatically, but like sunlight coming back after winter, steady and real. Grow it in containers near windows or your back door. Brush your hands through it in the morning and breathe in. Use the dried leaves in tea. Make a simple floor wash for the beginning of every month. Let your home learn from this plant what it feels like to be genuinely, unself-consciously happy. Number 6, holy basil, the sacred plant that responds to devotion. Holy basil, known in Sanskrit tradition as tulsi, meaning the incomparable one, is the only plant on this list that within its primary spiritual tradition is not just used, it is loved. In Hindu households, the tulsi plant is not placed in a corner and occasionally watered. It is tended daily as a devotional practice. It is spoken to. It is offered to. The relationship between the plant and the household is considered mutual. The plant protects and blesses those who care for it, and the care itself becomes a meditation that opens the heart. The traditional placement is near the front entrance, where every person who crosses the threshold passes within the plant's protective field. The fragrance, that distinctive, slightly clove-like, green and holy scent, has been associated with clearing the mind, calming anxiety, and creating a doorway that feels, at a cellular level, like crossing into somewhere sacred. What makes Tulsi spiritually extraordinary isn't just its history, it's the relational quality it brings into your home. The practice of caring for something with daily devotion, of making that care an offering, this transforms gardening into spiritual practice, and your entrance into something that blesses everyone who enters. Number 7, yarrow, the warrior plant. Warriors carried this plant into battle. Let that settle for a moment, not for good luck, not as superstition, because they genuinely believed it would protect them, give them courage, and help them hold their ground against forces far greater than themselves. Yarrow, with its feathery fern-like leaves and flat-topped clusters of white or gold flowers, has one of the most specific spiritual energies you'll find in the plant world. It doesn't calm. It doesn't soothe. It strengthens. Traditional folk practice used yarrow to create boundaries, spiritual ones, the kind that say, this is where my energy ends and where the world's energy begins, and I am not available to be overwhelmed. It was hung over doorways, woven into protective charms, and used in practices designed to help people stand firm in their truth during times of pressure or attack. What makes yarrow relevant to modern life isn't ancient battle. It's the very modern experience of feeling spiritually depleted, overrun, or violated, of boundaries crossed so many times that you've forgotten where you end and other people's chaos begins. Yarrow helps you remember. It grows easily, tolerates poor soil, spreads into increasing protective coverage over time. Plant it near your home and let it teach your space what it feels like to hold a line, to stand firm, to know its own edges. Number 8, scented geranium, the peacemaker nobody talks about. If you've ever walked into a room where two people had recently argued and felt the air almost vibrating with leftover tension, scented geranium is the plant for that. It doesn't get the attention of roses or jasmine. Its flowers are modest, but the rose-scented leaves of scented geranium carry something unusual in the plant world, a gentle, persistent, heart-softening energy. Not romantic, not dramatic, just quietly, consistently peacemaking. Traditional folk use included growing scented geranium in family spaces specifically to reduce the sharp edges of conflict, to create an atmosphere where people found it slightly easier to be patient, slightly less urgent to be right, slightly more able to soften toward each other. The mechanism, whether you understand it energetically or scientifically, likely involves the rose compound aromatic molecules the plant continuously releases into your air, compounds linked to calming the nervous system, reducing aggression hormones, and literally relaxing the body's fight or flight response. Grow it in bright indoor light. Brush the leaves before difficult conversations. Tuck dried leaves into your pillows. Let your living room become a place where hearts don't have to stay so defended. Number 9, mugwort, the plant that opens doors inside your mind. This is the one that tends to make people skeptical until they try it. Mugwort has been used across European, Asian, and indigenous traditions for thousands of years for one primary spiritual purpose, enhancing the dream state. Traditional dream workers would stuff pillows with dry mugwort, hang bundles near sleeping spaces, or burn it before sleep to invite vivid, clear, meaningful dreams, and more importantly, to bring back what was dreamed. The spiritual understanding is that mugwort doesn't create anything that isn't already there. It thins the membrane between your waking consciousness and the deeper intelligence of the dream realm, making those subtle signals stronger, more accessible, more interpretable. People who work with mugwort report not just more vivid dreams, but a growing sense of intuitive clarity during waking hours. A feeling of being more aligned with their own inner guidance, less confused about direction, more able to trust what they know without fully knowing how they know it. Grow it in a contained space. It spreads readily. Keep dried leaves near your sleeping area. And if you've been feeling disconnected from your own wisdom, from your instincts, from that quiet internal knowing, mugwort is the plant that begins to rebuild that connection. One night at a time. Number 10, jasmine, the plant that changes the frequency of a room. Close your eyes and imagine jasmine blooming outside an open window at night. If you've experienced that, you already understand why this plant has been considered sacred across so many cultures for so long. The scent of jasmine does something measurable to the human nervous system. Studies have linked jasmine fragrance to reduced anxiety, elevated mood, and increased feelings of love and connection. But cultures that grew jasmine near windows and wove it through altars thousands of years before modern neuroscience understood why it worked, understood that it did, and they had language for what they observed. Jasmine lifts. It genuinely, almost physically elevates mood and emotional frequency. It creates an atmosphere where dark thoughts feel less permanent, where love feels less complicated, where ordinary days feel touched by something worth celebrating. Some traditions hold that jasmine in bloom literally attracts blessing spirits and divine feminine energy. And whether you hold that literally or metaphorically, the experience of a jasmine-filled room is undeniably different from a jasmine-free one. Train it near your bedroom window. Let it be the first thing you smell in the morning. It will change what kind of day you expect to have. Number 11, hawthorn, the fierce guardian. If you want a plant that takes protection seriously, hawthorn is the one. This isn't gentle energy. This isn't soft, welcoming, or subtle. Hawthorn is a thorn tree with a history in Celtic tradition so deep and respected that people were cautious about cutting it down, afraid of offending whatever protective intelligence resided in. The thorns represent spiritual defense. The white flowers represent blessing. The blood red berries represent life force and nourishment. Together, they create the most complete protective energy profile in the plant world, something that both guards fiercely and sustains generously. Traditional practice planted hawthorn at property boundaries, at the corners of land, at the entrances of estates, places where spiritual protection needed to be strongest. It wasn't asked to be peaceful, it was asked to guard, and its reputation, sustained across thousands of years and multiple cultures, suggests it fulfilled that role in ways people found absolutely reliable. Dwarf varieties can be grown in containers. Larger hawthorn trees prefer ground planting, where their roots can spread and deepen. Plant one at your boundary line, at your driveway entrance, at the corner of your property, and let it do what it has done for millennia. Stand watch. Number 12, linden tree. The 800-year-old peacekeeper. There are villages in Europe where a single linden tree has stood in the central square for over 800 years. People have gathered beneath it for centuries, for community meetings, for celebrations, for the resolution of conflicts. The placement wasn't accidental. The linden tree, also called the peace tree, was understood to carry an energy that calmed heated emotions, softened harsh words, and created an atmosphere where people were simply better to each other. Its heart-shaped leaves felt intentional to those who noticed. Its honey-scented flowers in bloom fill an entire neighborhood with something that functions in the body like a long exhale. Traditional European families planted linden trees near their homes with full awareness that they were inviting a particular quality of energy into their property, peaceful, maternal, patient, conflict-reducing. The tree was thought to have a watching presence, like a grandmother's steadying influence over a household. You don't need an ancient tree. Smaller linden varieties can be grown in large containers or as dwarf trees in modest yards. Even a young linden carries the beginning of that energy, quiet, steady, and oriented entirely toward peace. Number 13, vervain, the holy herb that was gathered with prayer. I saved this one for last because it deserves the space. Vervain was not just used across ancient traditions, it was treated differently from every other plant. Druids gathered it only at specific moon phases, only with specific ceremony, only with prayers spoken over the harvesting hands. Roman priests swept temple floors with it. It was used to bless altars, purify sacred spaces, and sanctify objects intended for divine use. Multiple separate ancient cultures with no contact with each other landed on the same conclusion. This modest little plant, growing wild in meadows with small purple flowers on tall, unassuming spikes, is somehow holy. Not powerful in an aggressive way, not protective in a fierce way. Holy in the truest sense, intrinsically, quietly, profoundly connected to something larger than itself. The tradition of hanging vervain above doorways was about blessing, not defense. The tradition of using vervain water to cleanse spaces was about sanctification, making ordinary places feel set apart, worthy of grace. What vervain offers your home isn't excitement. It's the rarest thing in the modern world, the feeling of genuine sanctity, the sense that your space is not just a shelter but a sacred shelter, that the life lived inside it matters, that the ordinary moments, the meals, the conversations, the morning routines are happening somewhere worthy of blessing. Grow it in a sunny spot. It tolerates poor soil and returns year after year. Harvest the flowering spikes in summer with a moment of gratitude if you're willing. Make vervain water for blessing your home. Hang a dried bundle above your front door and let your home remember what it's always been capable of being. Not just a place to live, but a place where something holy quietly dwells. Every plant on this list was forgotten for the same reason. We stopped believing that the living world around us participates in our well-being. We stopped thinking of our homes as something to tend spiritually, not just physically. But the plants didn't forget. They're still here. They're still doing what they've always done. The only question is whether we're ready to pay attention again. If this changed the way you see your home, leave a comment below. Tell me which plant you're bringing in first. Protection, peace, clarity, or something holy. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every week, we go deeper into creating homes that don't just look beautiful, but feel like somewhere you were always meant to live.